What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a video about Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, the definitive version of the base game which released a few years back, though right here at the beginning of the video it is important that I mention that this is in fact sponsored by the game's publisher, Sega, and with how people had recommended to me the original version, I thought this would be a good way to check it out. But with that exact thing in mind, Vengeance here will be out on June 14th, which should be today, the day this is going live, and it will be available on PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. And if anything in this video winds up sounding interesting to you, there will be a link in the description below where you can learn more. But with that said, let's actually dive into it. So Vengeance, the definitive version, is carrying forward both the base game while also adding a ton of content. Perhaps most notably in the form of an entire new version of the campaign called the Canon of Vengeance. This is going to introduce new characters as well as a new area to explore, a new dungeon, and a handful of quality of life features, just to name a few things. So let's dive into that a bit more fully. Now the first choice you'll make is what difficulty to play the game on, and it's probably worth a mention that especially in the late game, this title has a lot of systems that you can put together to very finely tune exactly the way you want to build your party and attack any individual monsters with, which is fantastic for people like myself who enjoy that kind of thing, but the game does feature a few easier difficulties, such as safety or casual, that will ease you into those systems if you're just interested in seeing the story and its many endings, including the new ones. Now shortly after this, after the introductory cinematic to be specific, you'll be presented with a choice: to take the girl's hand or not. This is effectively your choice about which campaign to play through. Now the game does warn you about this very clearly. There's a big message and everything, so you won't be blindsided by this. But essentially, if you take the girl's hand, you'll be playing the new campaign, the Canon of Vengeance, whereas if you do not take her hand, that is the normal campaign from the base game. And while I certainly don't want to spoil anything, this campaign features new characters like Yoko here, and of course new enemies to go with that campaign, which involves a mysterious group of demons called the Kaditsu, who have their own nefarious plans for the world. And that new group of demons does of course bring with it new demons to fight, and that's especially important because if you're unaware, this game actually sees you recruiting demons that you would normally be fighting to act as members of your party, as well as using their essences to sort out some of your own skills and the like. So not only will you be fighting new demons, they play an important role in your own progression in the form of potential party members and power progression. But regardless of which path you choose, Shin Megami Tensei 5 here is a story about angels and demons fighting a very apocalyptic war in an alternative universe set alongside modern-day Tokyo. Now this alternative version, of course, is a desolate version called the Wasteland that you'll be traveling through after finding yourself trapped there following a mysterious earthquake. You are saved by what is called a proto-fiend, who bonds with you to allow you both to collectively form what is called a Nahobino, which is a demigod-like being that you will be utilizing as your primary method of fighting off these angels and demons as you seek to protect the world from their influence. And as I already mentioned, the game does have quite a few different endings, 4 in the original game I believe, and then of course the Canon of Vengeance brings with it its own endings. So there's a fair bit of choice and consequence to be had in this game, but what about the rest of it? Well, a significant portion of the game is about exploring the Wasteland, which includes interacting, of course, with all sorts of gameplay elements, including some of the new quality of life features. For starters, while you're exploring, you can save anywhere you want simply by pressing a single button or, bringing up the system menu, of course. And there's also things like auto battling to speed up the turn-based battles. And what's more, though, they've also introduced a new travel mechanic called Magatsui rails that effectively allow you to traverse big distances of the landscape very quickly and even find some new things along the way in the process of that. And that's before you even get to the brand new areas, so even if you've played the game before, there's plenty of new things to experience. Otherwise, as you explore the wasteland and move towards your ultimate goal, you'll encounter all sorts of stuff. Magatsui crystals, which can heal you or build up resources outside of combat, which is a very convenient way to get healed up in between rounds of fighting. fighting. But assuming you can't find any, you can also run into a leyline font, which is a place you could get healed up in exchange for the game's currency called Maka, I believe. And it's also where you can do a few other things like handle some of your character progression, sell and buy items from Gustav, this delightfully weird character, who also sends you out to find his missing minions, who can provide you with glory and things like that to also speed up some progression for you. A little ways into the game, these leyline fonts will also serve as the place you go to handle fusing your essences as well as performing miracles. Now, all of this is done in the world of shadow, the game calls it, from the leyline fonts, but essence fusions allow you to take the essence of demons that you've fought or simply gathered up and infuse them into yourself, which is going to allow you to customize some of the skills available to our character to use in combat. But another part of this is called apotheosis. So glory is a resource that you'll be finding as you explore, and it can be spent on these very powerful passive benefits via the form of miracles. You can unlock more potential miracles by fighting off the abscests, as they're called, which are effectively these giant red blobs of demon energy that, if you have the courage to fight and destroy, will ultimately provide you with more miracles and resources to be obtained, which is, I think, a pretty interesting system overall, and that's before you even start getting to the demon portion of things. As I mentioned, you can talk to and recruit demons in combat. You do this by using a special combat option with your main character, and then you have to sort of encourage them to actually join you, provided you aren't rebuffed outright. And this takes the form of either just saying the things they want to hear, bribing them with things demons would like, or sometimes just straight up cash. And if you do that, you can convince them to join your team. Each of them has their own level and stats, and of course their own abilities alongside just being cool creatures that you can recruit. But what's more is it doesn't actually end there. A little bit into the game, you can also unlock fusion specifically for your demons. This will allow you to combine demons together to make new, stronger versions of them, provided you've got the demons and the levels to make it happen. With these new, stronger versions, of course, having their own powers and abilities to use. And it's worth noting that all of these demons can usually also be enhanced and customized via essences to give them more abilities and whatnot, which is where the really crunchy part of combat comes in, where you can really get into the weeds and customize exactly what you want individual characters to do via all of these different systems working simultaneously, which is what I enjoyed the most about my time with it, as there are simply so many options to customize the demons in your party helping you, your own character. And that's before we even start talking about actual combat. Combat also does a really cool thing that I like, which is that it allows you to sort of gain turns by attacking enemy weaknesses or performing criticals. You see, as pretty much expected, enemies come with various weaknesses and the like, but while their resistances can be very hindering to you by, simply blocking some attacks completely, if you hit a weakness, your character not only does more damage, but also gains another turn. Now, the counter to this is that if you miss, you actually lose turns. But ultimately, you only get so many actions per turn. As a standard, 1 per party member, so potentially up to 4. But then if any of those party members hits a weak spot or gets a critical, you can earn more actions to take an exceptionally devastating turn and potentially wipe out an enemy before it even has a chance to hit you, which I thought was a really cool way of approaching a more standard turn-based system. And then, of course, when you win in combat, you'll be leveling up as you go, so will your demons, and for your character at least, you'll be able to assign a skill point every time you level up, in addition to your simple basic upgrades that will happen no matter what, so you can customize the direction of these stat increases as well. And all of that customization is where I myself would definitely spend the most time with this game. So whether you've never played this title or you've played it before, the Vengeance Definitive version here definitely has a ton of content for pretty much everyone. So if any of that happens to sound interesting to you, definitely check out the link in the description below, and remember that this is out on PC, Nintendo Switch, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S. But with that said, I certainly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom, and have an amazing day.